everybody. It's time for Make Us a Mixtape. My name is Paul Farahvar.
I am music insider Marty DeRosa, as seen on my Zoom call header.
Well done. Well done. I'm just a stand-up comedian.
That's right.
We are here again. We're doing this podcast via Zoom because we're not in the same area code right now. So if you're listening, go and check it out on my YouTube page. And you can watch us and see what we look like during the quarantine.
You can watch me get higher and higher throughout the podcast as I just cracked open a new cartridge for my pen. So I'm gonna get pretty zipped for this.
Well, it's legal where he is. So just for those of you that are going to try to get us banned, you can't do that. It's legal. So we're going to do this episode. It's going to be the book report episode.
That's right. Our book club, our Make Us a Mixtape book club.
We've talked about a lot of our favorite books. And one that I finally got to read that Marty recommended to me was I Want My MTV by Rob Tenenbaum and Craig Marks. We love this book. I finished it, and I was, like you said, Marty, I was like sad when it was done. I was like, oh.
This book takes me back to pre-pandemic where I would read it at Intelligentsia after taking an edible and having White Claw in my Yeti, and I would just get trashed in the afternoon, early afternoons, reading this book. And then I would listen to the songs they would talk about. I would watch the videos when I got home. It was it's an oral history. And if anybody hates reading, and I'm like, if it's a good book, I'm in, but it needs to like really grab me. I'm a little bit of a baby when it comes to reading, but these oral history books, like, they're just so easy to read. And when you kind of like, cause I've read oral history books on wrestling as well, and TV shows and this and that. And it's just like, once you're in, you're in. A lot of these books that kind of go like the Seattle book, that's an oral history, Everybody Loves Our Town.
Right. I
felt like that one, it was like, it's the same thing like Bret the Hitman Hart, the pro wrestler Bret the Hitman Hart wrote this really great book. But the intro, there was so much time spent on the intro, on getting from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Bret getting out of Calgary to like starting to wrestle even was like, oh my God, this guy's going on and on. But I felt like in the Seattle book, there was, and they laid the foundation of the city's music scene, which I get and everything like that. But I think for that book especially, it was like, we want the juicy, like the like, this town is on fire, it's exploding with talent, and then the scouts are coming, and here's the music rivalries and stuff. And I felt like the MTV book was really quick on like, let's go. You know what it is. And they got into it. And it was like, when I got to the end of this book, like any good book, you're just like, oh no, there's only like 5 more pages. Like, fuck, it's over. It's over. I carried this book around with me. I read it pretty quick, but it just was like appointment reading. Like I woke up and I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to read more. And then you get to like everybody with MTV, I'm sure everybody has their sweet spot of MTV.
Well, people that are younger didn't even remember what MTV had.
Yeah, I don't know if if there's like a 20-year-old music insider, it's like, I think about history.
There can't be.
You can't read this book and be like, I got it. Like,
right.
It's just one of those things where it's like, you had to be there, man. But like for this book, it really, like, if you're anywhere from like, I don't know, like mid 30s up, this book is gonna like hit you like so perfect. It reminds you how important this channel was. This channel was like,
it was the shit. I mean,
it was so powerful.
Yeah, well, here, you unraveled a lot of stuff. First of all,
yes.
For a guy, go ahead.
Before we get started, Paul has made a top 5 list of sort of points of the book. 'Cause I haven't read the book in a while. So as we do this, I'm gonna be sort of remembering things from the book or whatever that we'll get into. But basically, this starts at before there was MTV, when it was just an idea.
How it started, yeah.
And one of the quotes that I read in this book that is like now everywhere, and I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, and it's such a perfect saying, especially in comedy and things like that, and in the entertainment business, is that success has many fathers. So when something's a giant success,
Everyone's taking credit for it.
everybody
Right.
is like in pro wrestling, like, and I keep sending you these interviews of these old musicians, like Fender, was it Gibson has that list of like these great interviews with people like Bob Rock and Kurt from Metallica just did one. There are these in wrestling, they call them shoot interviews, and basically a shoot interview is just like it's just a one shot on a guy. Someone off camera is like, "Hey, Paul, when did you start wrestling?" And, I started, and I feel like I could, like, if I had the ability to go in and cut everything right now, I'd be like, "You're gonna just watch this." Whether it's like the inception of Monday Nitro, or like whose idea was it to sign Hulk Hogan, I can name you like 5 people who were like, I'm the guy who thought of that. And so asked me, and I said, you got to hire Hulk Hogan. Like, and that this book too is like, there are so many people
that
like,
got credit, that some people that didn't get credit. But let me say this, from speaking from the opposite of Marty, as a guy who reads a ton of books, and I like
will not let anyone borrow his books.
Because
Paul has so many cool, fun books, and I want to read so many of them. And Paul's just like, nah, man, I think, and tape heads, you should agree, since we're doing this podcast together, I should be the only person who gets to borrow your books. And I gave my book away. I don't even know who's got my book now.
Well,
I gave it to my buddy Jimmy Lee. I'm like, you gotta read this.
Here's an example of why you don't lend out your books. You needed your book to go back to prepare for this, because your memory's.
I got it all in my brain, baby.
I have a law degree as a music expert. You are stoned and on drugs 20 hours each day. I'm the sober one. I mean, and here we come from totally different in book, as far as books are concerned. I just want to say that to people who are book fans, what Marty said is exactly true. All these music books that we read, compared to other books, they get right into it. Like, you read Keith Richards' book, there's so much backstory. All those autobiographies, they're like, when I was 12, we're like, we don't give a fuck. We want to get into the shit. And this gets into it right away, as does, and I mean, the Seattle book, Everyone Loves Our Town, they do a little background story, but these like oral stories, the one thing I hate about them usually are, like, you go, oh wait, who's that person? And you have to go to the front and be like, oh, that's
this and the Seattle book too, both like, I mean, some books like the Saturday Night Live book, it's like, all these famous people in it.
You know all the names, right?
You know all the names. But what's really cool about a lot of oral history books, and it was the same thing, if you love pro wrestling, the Nitro book is like so good.
You already allotted your pro wrestling.
I'm done wrestling. But you do see a lot. This is a book where you are going to whip your phone out and you're going to Google who this person is, or who this band was, or what was this song they're all talking about.
Or you want to go back and watch the video too, which is problematic for me, because when I work out, I'm at the gym 90% of the time. I'm on the treadmill or whatever, and then like, now I have to like dog mark this book to go back so I can go watch the video to remember what they're talking about, which is, for someone like you, is probably fun.
You read on the treadmill at the gym?
I read it on the elliptical. I read on the treadmill.
You're so weird.
It pisses people off. Pre-COVID time, you'd be at the gym and I'm like doing weights. I read like a page between, and people are like, "Are you done with that?" I'm like,
I feel like
hated person. Weird. I'm a villain.
Lifting on the weights. I see you reading on an exercise bike or like a treadmill. Maybe it feels like, I feel like I would get my ADD. I'd be like, I can't do this. But you're lifting weights and then stopping, like a bench press, and then stopping and reading.
So if anyone knows, when you work out, you do 1 minute intervals. You'll do 12 sets. You take a 1 minute break. During that 1 minute break, I like to read. I'll read a page, and I can't believe you. It's the most hated thing. I know.
I would imagine so.
Especially at a crowded gym back in like the early 2000s. Be like, are you almost done? I'm like, I'm getting to a really good part, and
you're a little instigator. I think you want them to complain to you.
No,
I
like reading.
This book there was a lot of behind the scenes people, and a lot of like, what I love is like, oh, this person was like the king of New York music. Like, everyone knew this guy, or everyone knew Hearst. You're like, who is this person?
Right.
And like you said, we're off to the races. There's a brief time of like people being like, hey man, maybe we should do this. One of the things that I loved, and I just told this story, I was telling my girlfriend Sarah the story the other day, because we were listening to some really old like 80s music, and I was like, do you realize that like when MTV was starting, they went to the record labels and they were like, yo, you should make music videos and play them on our channel, and it'll be great ads for your musicians. And the music labels were like, cool, like what's our budget? Like, and MTV was like, no, you're gonna make them, you're gonna pay for them, and then we're gonna pay them, play them. And they go, oh, okay, how much are you gonna pay us to play them? And they're like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like, it ain't about that. We're just gonna play these, and it's gonna be great advertisements for your bands. So some record labels were like, fuck you, man. We're not gonna spend our own money to make these mini movies for you to play for free so you get rich. And then other people, like a lot of UK bands who had these videos made for like Top of the Pops, songs like that.
Or older artists too, like had this stuff.
And they were like, yeah, dude, here. And then all of a sudden, imagine like comics, like stand-up comedians. And imagine like, before like comedy specials or posting anything, somebody was like, like, hey, hey, Jerry Seinfeld, do you want us to play any of your specials? Or absolutely not. And then they're like, Paul and Marty, and we're like, yeah, dude, here's a bunch of videos we took. And then all of a sudden, next time we're in town, we're selling out the Seinfeld venues. And he's like, who are these fucking guys? And that's what happened. Bands became gigantic overnight who were like not big at all in the UK. And now they could come here and sell out everywhere.
And it wasn't because they were like ahead of the curve. They weren't like, oh, this is going to be big. They just happened to have content that was
culturally in their scene. You just made these videos because they would play it on important music video channels, Top of the Pops or whatever.
If you couldn't make it live to record, even though when you recorded it, it was dubbed anyway.
Yeah.
The video, and then some bands happen to have this video of a fake performance, or a real performance, and then people would just play it. And
I think like
you go from
Duran and like
that's later. They figured it out, right?
They had them, and it was just like, there was, because like I keep thinking of like those early years of MTV where people were like, oh, they played like the same 20 videos over and over again. And I'm sure kids like me who didn't have MTV at first, and we were at a neighbor's house, we were just like, you'd watch so long, and then all of a sudden you're just like, I remember this video.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. And it was just a crazy thing that once people started to realize how good it was, they quickly abandoned all the shitty bands they didn't want anything to do with, because they're like, well, we don't need you anymore, 38 special or whatever. But I mean,
they were able to finally sort of get rid of, and I feel bad for the bands who we're like, hey, I have this new album and a new video, and MTV is like, we're cool, man. We're not. And you get to see too, like the different trends in music. One of the things that
they started
what would you say in that? I don't know if they say it in that book, but like when would you say the heyday of MTV was?
I think the heyday, well, this book goes for a certain period of time, which was the heyday.
Yeah.
But I would say the late 80s, early 90s was like when they had the most
ownership. The heyday, yeah. But I think, so I'll say the heyday, that's the heyday, because as you learn, like these grunge bands were not big. They weren't big ratings getters. They weren't. But I mean, I think the importance of MTV, I think like Y2K, it kind of ends, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there was still that, like with the boy bands and everything. What a weird
they still
way
had
to like
control, but you gotta
but like when MTV was like, oh shit, like what are you doing? We're watching MTV. Yeah.
But by that time too, Marty, that's when all they weren't playing the videos as often. They had had the real world,
which you read about, and you hear why. Yeah. After reading the book, what do you say to somebody who's like, MTV should still play videos all the time?
I mean, they have channels where they do. They have like MTV2 or MTV
Classic
now in certain places where, I'm in Florida right now where I have real MTV videos on a channel.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's only MTV, but there's other channels. So you do see it. But the concept I
What
don't.
videos are they playing?
That's the thing. Like you don't know what's gonna. It's a very weird eclectic mix. The classic ones they'll play the videos like from the time frame, but you also got to remember it wouldn't work today because we have so much access to music now
Yeah.
where we don't need to watch videos.
Well,
to be like, we're
they
not
say
visual.
they have people in the book who are like quoted as saying like you sat around for like an hour waiting for your
Right.
Madonna video or your, you know what I mean? It was like, cause some videos it would be a big deal of like, we're playing this at a certain point, you know, today it's going to debut or premiere or whatever. But
Yeah.
there was that thing too of just like, let's say your favorite band was like Winger, you know, which is funny. I have that written down. That's why I said that. But like, you know, not like the number one band on the channel, but they're behind them. So it's like, you just wait, you'll get your video on there.
Yeah. No, that's a thing. Like I remember when we had cable when I was in high school, you'd turn it. MTV was a go-to channel. 76, VH1 was 74. You'd
Oh,
go
I remember.
there.
I think at one point my MTV was 49.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like 51.
But I was the guy that back in the day, if it wasn't a video I liked, or if it was MTV Raps, which I didn't like at the time,
Crazy.
I would change the channel.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was something that they couldn't survive today because we have YouTube, we have 80 music, Spotify. I mean, you have access to everything you want. So it wouldn't work, but it was interesting to watch.
Do you feel a little like
watch
like,
now?
Do you feel like a little like, oh man, we were really like spoon fed by MTV, like by these corporations, like what to listen to back in the day?
Oh, absolutely. I think, and you learn that from the book too. Like there's the things, we'll talk about that in a little second. Like
another thing to jump on, not to cut you off, but to jump on like what you were saying was like why it wouldn't last, why it couldn't make it now. One of the things that they drove home in that book that I really wasn't aware of was like you had your megastars, Michael Jackson, Madonna, who else was huge? Like,
well, what time frame? Like
well, yeah, okay. At any certain point, let's say at any certain point,
yeah,
you have like in wrestling, I hate to bring it.
In
wrestling, you have like there was like the 4 pillars of heaven. It's these are your top 4 guys in All Japan or Noah. So you've got your 4. So back in the day, you have like Madonna, Michael Jackson, Guns N' Roses, and like I don't know, Prince. Now MTV was like, we need these people, but they don't all. There's years of those primetime MTV years where Madonna wasn't doing shit, Prince didn't have an album out, Guns N' Roses was on tour. So it was like you didn't have one of your, like it would be like Seinfeld, but like, yeah, Jerry's not doing anything. So it's all the other people. Yeah. And it was like, so that was tough because they're, at the end of the day, MTV was a commercial for products, the product being the album. So if Prince isn't putting out an album, you know, every couple years, you know, then it's like, well, in between those albums, there's just like Prince. If you watched MTV, you might not see a Prince video for like,
well, he wasn't.
Yeah, because he wasn't relevant to them.
They needed those anchors, and they were hoping that it would be, you know, it would be like every year, at least one of them would come. But sometimes it just didn't work out.
What's crazy is if today's music industry was, because back then you had to put out an album. You couldn't just put out a single unless it was like for a movie or something. Mm-hmm. Like it would have been so weird for like Madonna to just be like, here's a new single and it's not attached to any movie or album. It's just, I'm just putting this out, which people do now on iTunes. There'll just be like, you know, a single drop or something. And it's like, so you had to wait for these people because again, they're getting their money from touring. So if I'm putting it out this big album, it's like, I got to tour on this album and make all my money. So as far as MTV goes, like, you know, I'm not going right back to the studio to come up with a new album. I'm on the road. So like there were some albums that put out like, I mean, there's some of those bands that put out like 7, I mean, like videos, it's crazy. Yeah, off of one album.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. Spotlight. There's so many things that, you know, this is a good point to go into this, in the book where you brought up Michael Jackson. People don't realize, and it wasn't, I didn't know this until I read the book, that how much resistance there was
Yes.
to play Michael Jackson. I mean,
it's so they get into the idea of like at a certain point MTV, and I don't know how many years in, but people are like, you're really not playing any black people on this channel.
yeah.
And they were like, oh, what? That's crazy. And like everybody was saying they fought for it. Everybody was like,
Rick James
yeah,
called them out on not
yeah.
artists.
And
David called it.
imagine if you are a black artist, like, you know, Rick James had hits and stuff, but like imagine you're like Prince or Michael Jackson and you're like, you'll play that dog shit video, but you won't play my fucking videos that are awesome and cool.
Here's the backstory people need to know. In 1982 or 83, there was MTV had started. They were playing all the, you know, the hair bands, Van Halen.
But before that, like new wave, it was like all these new wave bands. I think even before the hair metal, I think it was like Flight of Seagulls and Duran Duran and stuff like that.
No, for sure. But my point is, at least some of those new wave bands like Duran Duran, they actually spent time and money on their videos. Bands that were hair rock bands before Bon Jovi and everyone started spending money on it. It was just them playing music, and they'd play the video, and it would be on MTV 1,000 times. Michael Jackson had a video with a concept, with like a director, and they were like, nah, we're not going to play the video until, you know, the powers that be were like, if you don't play these videos, we're not gonna give you these other white artists or whatever. And that, if they didn't do that, and it's funny because MTV kind of like backtracks, like, no, we were gonna play it anyway, but they were not gonna play it.
They were dragged kicking and screaming to play fucking, not even like Public Enemy videos, not NWA videos, not Two Live Crew videos, Michael Jackson. They were like, oh, I don't know about this guy.
Watch out, Marty, your chords you're hitting them, tapping every once in a while, so that's it.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Here's what I say to people, and it was a wake-up call in the book, because you're like, holy shit, like this summarizes everything. Forget about what's going on in the world, but like, if you can imagine Michael Jackson having to do all these things to get on the radio, whereas like somebody like Winger or whoever, they didn't even spend money on the fucking video. They just had like, oh, here's some footage of us in Rockford, Illinois. Just post that and that'll be enough.
Yeah.
That was the curve in 82, 83. Yeah. And then of course, now everyone knows and they acknowledge that Michael Jackson saved MTV, because they were flailing at that point.
Yeah, it's so funny how they were resistant to, you know, this entire genre of music and musician who became like their biggest. And it is fun too when you read about the Michael Jacksons of the world who could call MTV and be like, you're not playing my video enough, man. Like this is
they would tell people they'd be with, you know,
like I felt bad. I felt bad for, again, like the Wingers, who, you know, and there's different type of bands.
They interview these people
by MTV.
For those of you who don't know, they interview you hear their side of the story.
You do hear, which is very interesting, of people who were like, we were their favorites and their darlings, and then like, you know, there in the there's like a metal what is it, like
Cherry Pie guy, Warrant.
There's the Warrant stories are and you've heard it on a couple different, like, you know, heavy metal docs and stuff too, but they talk about, like, the guys in Warrant talk about how, like, when they put out the Cherry Pie album, they went to the studio. They either went to their record label, and it was like all their posters everywhere, and they're like, fuck yeah, dude. And then when they put out, I think it was that Uncle Tom's Cabin or something, they went to the record place, and it was all grunge bands and stuff, and they were like, oh no. And they would, like, I mean, there was the Beavis and Butthead thing, which Kip Winger was like, hey man, you're making fun. They're just like, sorry dude. And he's like, anyway, now that I got you on the phone, like, you guys gonna play our new video? And they're like, oh, I gotta go. And they would, like, these artists that were like MTV darlings, just like when whether it was genre switching or dude, we've got all these good bands to pick from now. We don't need your band anymore.
Right. I mean, then they had specialized shows later, but if you think about it, at the time in the early 80s, they weren't making any money, and they weren't playing these artists, and the excuse that they made was, well, we don't want to scare rural America. They're not ready for black music. But then, like, you look at, you know, when these artists were given the opportunity, the black community put out way better quality. You don't forget about the music if you don't like the music. The videos, I hated Michael Jackson in the 80s, but I would watch those fucking videos because I'd be like,
oh man,
holy shit, they're cool.
I was explaining how I was recently talking about like what a big deal it was when a Madonna or Michael Jackson would debut a video. And sometimes it wasn't on MTV. Sometimes they would debut it on Fox or whatever. And then you hear how MTV was like, oh, really? You're going to go Fox, huh? And there was a lot of like,
whoever gave them money,
it was a lot of like, who plays it first? There was a lot of like, we'll give you a month or two exclusivity on our video. And it was like, and MTV knew they had that power, and they fucking used it, man. They used that power with bands and with artists and stuff. And it's like, whether, you know, when they got what they wanted, it's really interesting, where I bet there's a lot of artists out there who are really happy that like the music industry was sort of taken out of a lot of the people's hands who were in charge.
Oh,
you know, be it MTV or radio or stuff like that. Like, it's got to be pretty satisfying to a lot of people who, I mean, in 2021, you can make a hit on TikTok in your bedroom, and it can be seen by more people than would have seen these MTV videos.
Yeah, the playing field has completely changed, if not evened out, depending on who you ask. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely, but those artists that you talked about, like Wingers and all the hair metal bands, they experienced that. You know, when grunge came, they were destroyed, and MTV stopped giving a shit. But the same thing. The other thing that was amazing about this book, I'll bring up now, is Yo MTV Raps, which was at first I hated it, but then obviously I got into it big time.
Dude, I loved it so much. I remember watching it one summer, just every afternoon it was on.
The great thing about that is another example of MTV being resistant to playing black artists, because they're like, well, no, we're not a rap art thing. And the guy, the thing that I learned that was amazing to me was Jonathan Demme, who later on made great movies. One of my favorite movies, Beautiful Girls, was a guy who was pushing hard for this. He happened to, in addition, I mean, the guy, if you ever Google Jonathan Demme, he's like a Renaissance man. He did a
wild man,
partied his ass off. He's
known
dead
as a
now.
pop head, and was, and this is the thing too, because you keep hearing like, it's New York, and this is like taking over New York, and you know it'll take over everything everywhere once, you know. I could see the quote unquote like fear of rural America being like, who are these people on our television? I mean, Yo MTV Rap, but I will say this, for the age I am, I'm 43 right now, and I remember seeing things like the LA riots, and I remember a lot of like teachers and my parents even being like, what are they so mad about? And I remember being like, I know exactly why they're mad, because I listen to fucking NWA, and I know exactly what these cops are doing, and I know exactly how they feel, and I know, and it just like, and you know, and that opened up a whole, you know, portion of the culture of like movies like you know, Do the Right Thing and Boys in the Hood, and these powerful movies that showed us, you know, people in the suburbs like, oh, okay, that's a whole different world.
You weren't just in the suburbs; you were like in Indiana, so that's.
Like but I was next door to Gary, Indiana, so it was like very interesting. You see all these differences in life and everything.
Yeah, I mean that's funny, because I remember talking about the LA riots and stuff to my friends, and I grew up in a community that was purely white.
I mean, Paul was in the whitest white town of all time. I mean,
but I was always talking about this stuff to people, because like I got into NWA, I got into all this stuff because of my cousin. I went to a concert, I saw Public Enemy, and I was like, holy, this is like life changing. Shout out to my cousin Ash, but
I think so. Shout out to Public Enemy.
But it's funny, because when we during this summer of all the craziness that we dealt with George Floyd, my friends who I grew up with were like, wow, like you were talking about this shit back then, and I didn't realize like these are guys in their 40s that are like, and guys and women and men who are like, wow, like our community was
Yeah.
so fucking toxic in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
But MTV Raps put on the table, and Jonathan Demme, for those of you who don't know, was a total rap head. Like,
Yeah.
this is a guy who produced movies and did a
Yep.
whole bunch of cool shit. And there was a scene in the book where Ed Lover and a couple of the other guys are just talking to a rap artist, and they're like, "Who's
Yep.
this guy?" And Ed Lover just goes, "This guy knows more about rap than any of you fuckers. He knows more about our community." And he
Yeah.
never, like, he just thought it would be something that blew up. And then,
Yeah.
to his credit, where you talked about earlier, how people are like, well, I came up with it. Everyone does
Yeah.
say he was instrumental. Like,
Yeah.
everyone says that.
Yeah. It's you can't it's in this
Fat
day and
Five
age,
Freddy.
it's a little gauche to take credit for Yo MTV Raps when you didn't as a white guy, versus like, oh, the network was my idea.
And then we talk about it at his funeral, which was like a party, because this guy,
Yeah.
I mean, he did a lot of drugs. He partied,
Yeah.
not
It's
like
wild.
dirty drugs. He did like the
Bad real drugs.
the stuff
Real
that I
drugs.
used to do. Yeah, no,
Not
like
the friendly ones like I do.
but he partied, and then they talked about at the funeral, like, you have people, Tom Cruise, all these movie stars, and then you have like the rap guys who are like,
Mhm.
yeah, he also did this, by the way, like he changed
Yeah,
the community. So,
it was interesting how MTV, and I love the VMAs so much. I love watching old VMAs. I love watching old specials from VMAs, the Video Music Awards, which were huge and could make new artists. And we got some feuds there. We got the Guns N' Roses Nirvana feud kicked into high gear at the VMAs. Courtney Love throwing her makeup at Madonna VMA
Courtney Love starting
moment.
shit between Nirvana and Guns
Yes.
N' Roses. Yeah.
Poison having their meltdown. CC DeVille having his meltdown on stage, and one of the weirdest,
Bobby Brown
like that.
getting his drugs.
Bobby Brown dropping his cocaine and then picking it up allegedly, and even though he definitely did it.
They talk about that
yeah.
in the book too. They talk about that in the book.
Yeah. And I mean, you just, how about you two fucking, ooh, we'll send you a video from our big concert.
Surprisingly,
We're about to call George Bush.
I do want to say, Marty, the surprisingly, all the hatred that we shed on U2 and Aerosmith in the past episodes,
Yeah.
U2 fans have come out and support. And once again, I challenge you to come at us for that. But
I think we're right.
We did get a couple hate mail about the
the monologues of the VMAs, whether it was Chris Rock, who kind of is like the greatest host of all time of the VMAs. Chris Rock would call out long before Ricky Gervais would do the was it the Golden Globes or whatever.
Yeah.
Chris Rock was doing that shit on MTV. I remember like just so many of those jokes of just being like, oh, and they would show the celebrity he was joking about in the crowd. They'd have to do that like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they did that with this year. They shit on like Sebastian, who,
I mean, that was a whole. That's the worst idea to have host that show.
Yeah, they're like,
everybody. Here's what I think. That everything that happens sometimes, it's like I guarantee there were people who were like, this is not a good idea. But I think he's a guy our age who's like, I gotta host the VMAs if they ask me to, But anyway, let's not get sidetracked with comedy opinions. You put together a five top five list.
I've been interchanging them. Martin.
Oh, okay.
Talked about two, yeah. So, see, that's why I'm.
Wow.
That's
you called an audible. You called an audible before we even started here. If not going by number.
We already start, Marty. I don't know what kind of drugs you're on, but we've been going at it for quite some time.
I know, but I mean, I was expecting you to be like, okay, number one. Okay, no, so we're just going to do these.
The first thing was the MTV reluctance to Michael Jackson. The second thing was Jonathan Demme with the UMTV rap. And then to the next thing I want to bring up, which is the flip side of that, we kind of talked about, is the takedown, right? You have to have they build something up or someone messes up and then destroys their career. And nothing was more hilarious to learn about, or sad, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
The Billy Squire video for Tonight.
So if you don't know,
go watch the video.
Go watch the video.
And
then
it's a real video.
Okay, now you're back. Here's some things you might be asking yourself. Well, who was Billy Squire anyway? Billy Squire was
Big.
selling out arenas.
Arena.
I watched a couple videos on YouTube. Professor Rock maybe does it, but if you just put that in, there's like multiple video essays that talk about this video and how it ruined his career.
Ruined his career.
What you have to understand is before this, he was selling out like arenas,
He was
which
the
is
biggest.
crazy.
Yeah, if to give you an idea, my brother, who's 7 years older than me, he saw Foreigner and Billy Squire at a sold-out show at the Milwaukee, where they used to play baseball.
Is that Fulton County Stadium, or
it was
whatever?
Something weird. Yeah, I have the ticket stub. I posted it somewhere recently, but Billy Squire,
I mean,
selling it out, and the other bands were like Loverboy later. Give you an idea.
Those early MTV,
Early
you know,
80s.
like
That's
MTV playing like The Outfield and Dire Straits and stuff.
This is early 80s. So Marty, going back to what we were talking about, Loverboy was one of those bands that would just make videos. If you watch their videos, they're horrible.
A lot of these are horrible videos.
But that's what was competition when Michael Jackson was coming out. But Billy Squire's video was so bad that
what I heard in watching these video essays about this video was the director was like, I just want to capture you getting ready to perform like a sold out show. I want to bring the fans in your bedroom, and I want it to see like you just woke up from a nap and you're about to get ready to play this sold out show for these rabid fans. And I want you to just dance around like you would and just kind of go through the motions and really get into the spirit of like, who is Billy Squire? And somehow that turned into this dude who was a rock star and had like male fans. He wasn't like all female fans. He was like, I think the way it was described was like
he was
like 60-40 female. Yeah. At his shows. But anyway, it could not have been fun. It would have been like, imagine this. Imagine an SNL sketch where the host is like a cool dude. Like the host is like, you know, like a maybe even a musician. Like the host is like whoever, like think back to like maybe like if they would have gotten like Axl Rose to host SNL, and he was like a real silly goose and real fun. So they're just like, all right, Axl, here's this pitch for the sketch. We're gonna like, dude, it's gonna be you. Like maybe there's a bottle of booze, and like you could tell maybe like
I'm watching it right now.
You had two women in bed and they leave or whatever, and now you're just getting ready. And then they're like, all right, and action. And it's a doop, doop, doop. I'm walking around my apartment getting ready for the concert.
It's flamboyantly
it's
effeminate.
Yes.
In a time, you got to remember, this is early 80s.
Yeah.
Where it could it ruins.
It did. It ruined his career. It ruined his career.
I mean,
he claims that his Billy Squire claims that his girlfriend saw the video and was like, you can't have them post this or post it. You can't have them air this video. I don't think it's good for your career. And again, his agent was like, dude, they're going to love it. And he was like on the road selling out shows when this video hit, and then the ticket sales. And I don't think MTV ever played much of his shit again.
It's such a bad video. It's just so bad. His dancing and crawling around.
Yeah.
He's wearing like a pink shirt at some point. It was just.
Well, he has like a little pink tank top on a hanger, and it's like, ooh, time to put this on. Let me rip this white shirt off.
On the floor right now. I mean, it's
everything. Like if like the Lonely Islands did a version of this on like a video short, you'd go, that's like, you know how like fucking Jimmy Fallon, they'll do like complete video. They'll like completely reshoot scene for scene a video. Like him and Jack Black did a video, and him and Ant-Man did a video. So if they did this one, people would be like, all right, Jimmy, this is like, you've gone too far.
I mean, he's wearing a trouble for this shirt that you,
and those little moves, what are those little arm moves he does? They're so funny. He's such a bad dancer.
Bad scene. And they told people and that's another example of what you're talking about before, where everyone tries to take credit. In this case,
nobody wants anything to do with these bad videos.
He told him, but yeah, he doesn't take the blame. But then he kind of is like, doesn't matter. I'm fine
Yeah.
now. Like,
And then he was not fine. Now, the videos start to get better. The budgets start to get higher. People start to realize this is part of the package. You can't just put out a great album and have a hit single. You have to have a great video. So then we start getting into this whole thing where the film world, which at first was like, I'm not doing music videos. Those are for like editors and like, you know, you get like some kid out of film school to make those for you. But then all of a sudden it's like, this is art. These are real films.
Yeah.
And then like Michael Bay and David Fincher are doing music videos, and the budgets are getting higher. And that was fun too. Hearing like,
I mean, I think Michael Jackson, they weren't going to pay for the video. It's like, I'll pay for it. It was like, at the time, it was $500,000, which.
Yeah. And it was like when Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson did Scream, and it was like the first $1 million video, and people were like, oh. But I mean, you got to see
black and white too. Yeah.
You got to see videos. The production quality went up. Obviously, MTV could say no to videos now. But then they had power, and they would be like, you can't have guns in your videos, or, you know, you can't do this or that, or
the Pearl Jam video for Jeremy. The true story that Eddie Vedder had, and then people would watch the video. I remember watching the video and being like, well, what happens at the end? Did he shoot everybody else? But
you would think through the editing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Tell the end.
They couldn't show the gun. The guy killed him. The kid killed himself in class.
Jeremy, in the video, Jeremy kills himself, but because of the edits that MTV wanted, it made it look like it insinuated that he kills the students, like it's a Columbine thing, which it's not.
Yeah, which it wasn't, right? And then that's when Eddie Vedder's like, well, we're not doing videos anymore, which I guess.
I feel so bad we haven't talked about the king of MTV, Kurt Loder, yet. How much did you love The Week in Rock or any other like documentary specials or any interviews? I mean,
we need to have, we'll get John Norris back and have him tell us his 5 favorite. Well, I don't know if he's read the book, but
I don't know if he's a big, because when we interviewed him, he doesn't seem like he's too big on like the nostalgia and talking about. He likes the new stuff more, which is great. Yeah, but I like, a dream would be to have, you know, obviously Kurt Loder on and ask him about this stuff, and if he still even, I mean, you know, gives a shit about any of this stuff.
Yeah, the Kurt Loder stuff, and you forget about when MTV got into the election in 1992. Where Tabitha Soren and was like she happened to know a lot about politics in some areas, and people would just shit on them and be like MTV.
Yeah.
And then they basically were responsible for getting Bill Clinton into the presidency.
Well, I mean, choose or lose. Remember like the boxers and briefs thing? Like what a big like.
Yeah.
Ooh, and then.
Yeah, I wish I did. I mean,
there was a lot of.
That's what he said. He said. They asked Bill Clinton, they're like, if you can inhale, his answer was, I wish I could. Like, I couldn't.
Yeah, that was he just didn't know how to inhale.
Come on.
Yeah. But I loved all those things. And I guess this is sort of like a natural segue. MTV starts producing its own shows.
Which that's my next point, actually. So
yeah, let's see how I'm good at setting up the songs, and I'm good at moving the conversation
in front of you. Yeah,
I don't even have the list in front of you, but I know this would be perfect to talk about.
The show that one of the first shows that they produced was Remote Control, which was a comedy game show hosted by Ken Ober and Colin Quinn.
Did you watch Colin Quinn?
I love that.
Adam Sandler.
Kari Wur. Well, Adam Sandler.
Kari Wur.
Few scenes.
Kari Wur.
Adam Sandler.
Dennis Leary. Dennis Leary
played Colin Quinn's brother, I think. Yeah.
Kari Wur. Holy shit, man.
Kari Wur also, who I had a huge crush on. I didn't realize
huge.
Like this Christian evangelical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gets exposed to MTV, and like she becomes like a sex goddess.
Yeah. Sex symbol.
Sex symbol, yeah.
So
great watching. I remember watching it every day.
Dude, did you ever play it with your friends and make up your own questions?
No, but I was so good at that. I would get angry.
Yeah.
I was younger than all the fucking people that were on
the
show. And I knew more about music than all of them. Because I was a music expert.
I know. I was so good at that show. And like the end when you'd watch all the videos, remember when you'd get the Craftmatic adjustable 3000 or whatever, and then watch that wall of videos and be like, number one, Nirvana, number two, you know, like
Yeah. It was
the
so
coolest.
easy, and I'd be like, "Are you guys crazy? Why are they getting these idiots to do the show?
Yeah.
They're experts." But
So Colin Quinn tells a story about how, or either Ken or Colin. Oh, Colin, I think Ken Ober has passed away, but I don't know if this was a quote from before. But remote control, like David Letterman's original show, became so popular because of college viewing.
yes,
And they were like, yo, this is like a huge college show. Like, we should take this on the road and perform at these colleges. And they were all stand-ups, and they thought they were going to go to these colleges and do like stand-up shows like you'd see from, you know, shows like, oh, it's the people from this show, they're all going to do stand-up. But these MTV fans and college students would come to the shows and be like, we don't want to hear you do stand-up, we want you to do live remote control, and like we want chairs to go flipping back and everything, which is like, that's got to be wild. You're thinking like, oh, we're going to go do stand-up, and everyone's like, we don't want to hear you talk about the grocery store, we want you to fucking do remote control.
Yeah, no, that was funny because you'd see, and I remember when those guys would come to like town, and you're like, oh, I want to go see that, but you're like, I was too young, or I don't know what the issue was.
Too young, yeah.
Well,
but then they learned, unfortunately, that through the ratings, they got so much more ratings with a show like Remote Control, and they were like, oh wow, people want to watch our shows.
If you're a fan of Colin Quinn, this is a fun, he's very
what is his quote?
Stories about you know, the fringe benefits of being a star on MTV. And not even a musician.
No, that's the thing too, where you hear guys like Ken Ober and Colin Quinn who were like, probably
what? Watch your thing, Marty.
I'm so sorry. Hey, Sarah, do you have better headphones? This is like rubbing. They talk about how you know, going to colleges and hooking up with college girls. They're probably like in their late 20s or something.
He said
and they were talking about like the benefits of like of the show, and they were able to, you know, go be dirtbags on college campuses.
Very dirty. Yeah. Colin Quinn gets into details on that. So it's pretty funny to hear all that stuff.
So I'm going to switch headphones real quick, Paul. So go ahead and talk about your favorite moments with remote control.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay. So the next, we talked about the remote control is that it's a great thing. It was a great opening for oh, Sarah.
Hold on, I don't hear you. I'm so sorry. We're getting it. Hold on.
Remote control. It was a great platform for comedy too, because we have all these things where you see all these comedians breaking out on MTV. I mean, they gave an opportunity to stars like Adam Sandler and Dennis Leary. So.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're fine. You were good
all
before,
right, cool.
Marty. It sounded great, but you just kept tapping because you're so animated.
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I have to wear actual gamer. These are Sarah's official Twitch headphones. So.
Okay. Well, we talked about remote control, and the last thing.
But ratings. That was what I was trying to get at before.
They realized that they ratings.
They start looking at the numbers, and again, this is MTV. This is a gigantic business. They don't care about musical integrity or quality, right? They are going to play the most successful things and the things that cost them the lowest amount of money. So they start to realize, oh shit, we got to make more of our own shows. And that's what they start doing. They start making more shows. And then, you know, what a lot of people think's the nail in the coffin of the music video on MTV is the real world. But remote control is the real first, you know, line.
First start, that remote control, they realized that their ratings, they were keeping people on for longer, whereas MTV's, you have people clicking in and out. And I think it was a change in they changed everything, and then obviously, you know, the real world changes it all later. We could talk about that in another episode. But remote control. For those of you younger tape heads, go and watch.
There's not a whole lot. I wish there was I would love a real documentary on remote control. I think that would be amazing. I would love like Colin Quinn or somebody to put out a documentary about remote control. And I also, if you haven't already, go on YouTube and watch the MTV did their own like Headbangers Ball mini documentary. It's so good. It's like an hour. It's like 45 minutes. It's so good. And that to me is like, when I think of MTV, I think of like Headbangers Ball on Saturdays at like midnight or whatever. We got it at like 11 o'clock our time, which is like sleepovers. You would just have that on and be, you know, talking or whatever in the background. And then just like when the VJs were on and the background was all just like changing crap or whatever, like that to me, and their names in big white letters, is just like, that to me was like MTV.
Yeah, I mean, it was such and then of course they had the other specialty shows too. Alternative Nation came out, and those
yeah, I mean, that it was interesting with the grunge thing, and that reading these books has been like eye-opening, where it's like there weren't ratings winners. You know, like you know, Alternative Nation is something where like when they canceled Headbangers Ball, then they tried to do the show called Super Rock, which was kind of like rock, but more sort of inclusive, not just the heavy metal bands, because people were getting like, this isn't a metal band, and like you know, you started playing grunge bands on Headbangers Ball, and then that became like Alternative Nation, I think, after a little while. And it was like, that was the music that everybody was into, but like they weren't giant MTV stars like Madonna and Michael Jackson and Guns N' Roses. And I mean, hair bands had, I mean, we got to see a whole genre of music become the biggest and then just completely go away.
Disappear. Yeah, I mean,
disappear.
I remember we've talked about it on the other episodes where you know, there's certain songs. I was like, I would waver in and out of the hair metal stuff. I had a friend, Ryan Tanabe, who was totally into.
Hell yeah! Shout out to Ryan.
Shout out to Ryan, who would buy every week. We'd go to the Flip Side or the Rose Records and buy a new like shady something he saw in Hairbangers, like
Headbangers Ball. Yeah,
one of those bands that weren't a fringe Hairbanger Ball, but like
Headbangers Ball. You keep saying Hairbanger, you're gonna make Headbangers Balls fans very mad.
Headbangers. Well, there was a band called Hairbangers. So
okay,
Hairbangers Ball. They did covers at all the festivals.
Of course.
Boy Productions. Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, the Headbangers stuff I got into, but yeah, like it's so crazy how, you know, Motley Crue, all those you know, Poison, all that stuff became irrelevant like overnight.
I mean, again, we saw the rise and then the fall of like an entire music genre before our eyes. We saw the videos, and then they just like, it was so weird because it's just like a party that these people just didn't get invited back to.
I mean, it happens in all genre, right? Like before time of disco that was destroyed, like forgotten.
And MTV was totally fine talking shit when somebody was gone.
Okay, tape heads, we got we had some technical difficulties. I had too many files as a music insider on the background.
Did you just get a tweet about a music about a new musical scoop?
We're getting all kinds of insider information everywhere.
Yeah, and then as you had that problem, my cat Peter, this is DJ who's sitting on my lap right now. Peter's butt exploded, so.
Ew.
It was it's been a real, and I changed my shirt. I got a new shirt in the mail that I tried on. All right, we got to wrap up MTV here. I could talk about this all day.
We were talking about the Headbangers.
We were talking about Headbangers Ball and how they just kind of like wiped those people away. Do you remember the Don Henley story in there? That's so funny.
The Don Henley story is awesome. We can't get into that now because it's so good. We are gonna have a part 2.
Just read the book, and the Don Henley story is such a great, like, it's like he's just getting his ass kicked on the VMAs, and he's like, this is stupid. He's such a rich, famous guy that he knows, like, the guy who runs Madison Square Garden
and all this stuff,
and just goes up in his office, and he's just like drinking in his office or having a smoke in his office, and they're like, please come sit down for the next award, and he's like, why? I'm just gonna lose it to Michael fucking Jackson anyway. And they're like, just, it would be cool if you sat in your seat for this next award. And he's like, I'm fucking done. They're like, dude, you're winning the award. Just go please sit down so you can fucking get your award. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll go down there.
Yeah, the book is awesome. We're gonna have to, Marty, you're gonna have to do your your section of stuff that you liked from the book too. I know you got to find who you lent your book to, which is again,
maybe
why you
Jimmy
don't like-
Lee. I don't know. I think yeah, or we should do like our top 5 VJs or something.
Yeah, we're definitely going to cover the book. There's some other stuff coming up, possibly involving the book.
Yes.
But I do want to close on one thing that I thought was really fun about the book that I didn't realize, that Michael Nesmith of the Monkees was one of the original creators of MTV. Again, what Marty was talking about before, it's like who really did. They give him credit for the idea.
Yeah.
He walked away. He's like, this isn't what I pictured. He had a little different vision, but like. And they ask him later, he's like, nah, I don't care. Like, they're like, do you regret leaving? He's like, no, I got a pretty good chunk of change for.
Yeah, man. He's done all right.
And he has all kinds of other side projects.
Yeah, he's like a real smart dude who was into all kinds of stuff.
And he's into Monkees, one of the greatest bands of all time.
One of my favorite TV shows growing up.
It was such a good show. It had such an idea of what.
So great.
What live music was really like.
Yeah.
I think Jeff Tweedy talks about that in his book, where he's like, I watched the Monkees videos. I just thought the bands all lived together and everything.
That right? Like, I just assumed all Guns N' Roses lived together. I mean, a lot of these bands did live together, you know, so pretty cool.
We'll get into that again. You guys, thank you for another edition. Sorry about the little confusion. We're going to get that fixed in post. Message us, paulmartymix@gmail.com. Read the book. Tell us your thoughts.
Yes.
If you have music books you want us to talk about or that you think we're missing, let us know too.
I was just thinking as you were talking about the book, do you ever think there'll be like a VH1 like companion book to this, and it'll just be real like low key and real lame?
Like, yeah, we knew we were lame.
Everybody's just like, yeah, I know it's VH1, and it was just mostly Gin Blossom videos.
They're like, we know there's a lot of Sade fans out there. We wanted to give them something.
Yeah, I mean, there was for you know, was VH1 kind of like originally pitched as like a more chill, like
they wanted
more adult contemporary MTV?
They talk about it in the book. I don't think you remember it, but
can't remember that.
Created it to compete with Ted Turner was going to create a music thing.
That's right.
They wanted to take over the market, and they're like, we're hoping that it would be unsuccessful so they can knock it out. But then it was like, they're like, well, shit, now we have this. You know,
you know what? I think that's where I read in that book that this is a cool thing I learned in that book. And I hate to bookmark the episodes with wrestling, Paul, but that's what we're going to do. One thing I learned in that book is they talk about in business, like if you're McDonald's, okay, and your big competition is going to be like Burger King, they say that in big business, what they do is they don't go compete head to head. They create another brand. Right. And what happened in wrestling is there's a new company called AEW.
Yeah.
And
they do that everywhere, Marty.
But it just really rang true for me there. I saw it happening in real life.
It also
AEW was starting, and they go, well, we're not going to compete WWE. This is NXT and AEW.
It happens.
Interesting.
In politics.
You bring your competition down. But yeah, Ted Turner was going to start. Was he going to start his own channel, and then he just was like, fuck it, or just playing a lot of music videos on his channel?
It's a whole convoluted story. But to point out what you bring in wrestling, Marty, they also do it in politics, where they run a third-party candidate to take away the votes.
Ross Perot,
Kanye. West,
they always say that with all the all the.
But anyway, whole other issue. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Paul Marty Mix. We'll have another episode soon. And tell your friends, subscribe. Give us your own thoughts on that, or your own list.
Yes. Let us know five takeaway points of your reading of I Want My MTV.
Whether you read a book like Marty, sporadically high, or you're a hardworking workout guy like me, pissing people off at the gym.
There you go. And who knows? Maybe one day we'll get one of these fancy authors to come on this very podcast. Wouldn't that be wild?
Maybe. Is that foreshadowing? We don't know. We can't tell you. Thanks, Al, for another fun episode.
Later, tape heads.